Hello class, I just am posting the second video tonight, June 12th, just so that you have an idea of what I'm looking for on your citations for speech number 3. So when we're talking about citations, what we're talking about is your ability to tell me where you're getting your information. On speech 3 it says, do you have adequate citations? What I'm looking for is, are you citing all of the material that's not purely general knowledge? The stuff that is in there and appropriate under each of the main points you have. So like if you have 3 main points, I'm expecting to see at least 3 sources cited verbally throughout there. And of course, you're welcome to have more on your reference pages and verbally cited. But when I'm looking at your oral citations, I'm looking for you to say stuff that includes the author, the publication and title, the date, and if it's confusing or if it's not really there, the credibility of that source. For instance, if we take this Time magazine here, right, and I'm trying to tell you something about the article that's in here. I might say in a June 13th, 2016 Time magazine article entitled How to Stay Married and Why by Belinda Luscombe. That would be a pretty solid oral citation. I'm looking for all of that information. When you're talking about an oral citation, I want to be able to find the information you're talking about without having to resort to looking at your reference page. Your reference page is great to have, and it's an important factor for what's going on there. But in the end, I can't grade you on anything but what you say on your speech in your oral citation. I also expect it to be written in your outline. So when you're talking in your main point, right, when you're writing all of the stuff that you say in your outline, and you are required to write out everything you plan on saying in your speech, that includes your oral citation. It's not just a parenthetical at the end, which is also very important. But I expect you to write out, according to a Time magazine article, June 13th, 2016, right? I expect you to have all of that available for us. That way, when you have it out, we can find it. Like, your audience will not have the same available resources I will, right? If someone in your speech wanted to go find that information, they would have to go solely on what you say in your speech. And that's what we're looking for, okay? Now, when we're talking about your reference page is an important part of any citation that you're going to have, right? Because in the end, not only are you going to have parentheticals in there where I'm going to be able to look at your parenthetical and match it up to your reference page, I'm looking at your reference page as your ability to say, yeah, this is where I got it from, and you're willing to show me where your sources are, right? So remember, on your reference page, it should be reference centered at the top. All of your sources should be in alphabetical order with a hanging indent on a separate page. And remember, citation machines are fantastic to use. We use APA 6th edition, but when you're using a citation machine to create that APA 6th edition citation, it's very important that you match it, right? You check the requirements for what that citation machine spits out against what is actually in the APA 6th edition. So, for instance, several citation machines that I know, they put out titles in all capitals. Well, that's not appropriate, right? You only want the first word capitalized, proper nouns, and anything after an extra punctuation like a colon, right? So in that, I expect you to have the basics of any citation, right? Author, the date for a newspaper or for a periodical that's weekly. I expect you to have the month, day, and year, but just the year for any of the normal stuff, right, like journals or websites or whatever. I expect you to have the author, the date, the title, the publication, the numbers, so like the volume and edition numbers if you can, and the DOI if you can. But what I need is all of that basic information. If I couldn't find that citation, if I couldn't find that resource without having to Google extra things, right, that's not enough information. For instance, you will never have a citation in my class where it's appropriate to have it without an author or without a date, okay? When I mean that, right, you can use organizations as authors sometimes, right? Like, so if you're citing the CIA World Factbook, they don't put in a specific agent who wrote that piece. The author is the CIA, even though it's the CIA World Factbook published by the CIA. You end up putting CIA in there a lot, but that's the exception to the rule, right? The vast majority of things have an author. A couple of places that can go either way are like the Pew Research Center, right? Sometimes the Pew Research Center cites things purely as Pew, and sometimes they put things as an author's name. I want you to look in that, because if I go look up your citation, which I do, I spot check citations, and I can find the author in like the first couple of minutes, I'm not going to count that. Put in the work. Really, really check your citations and really check the ability to find that resource, especially the date, the author, and the title, right? You should know your publication because that tells us how credible it is, right? There's a difference between getting something from CNN and getting something from like BuzzFeed. Not that BuzzFeed isn't necessarily sometimes a credible source, but you know, having a BuzzFeed list where it's someone's opinion against a CNN fact article, that's very, very different, right? For the purposes of this class, I also accept all major news sources. So we're talking Fox, CNN, MSNBC, right? Even some of those ones, they're a little different. But for the purpose of this class, if it's a major news network, I'll accept it. If you have questions about what that means or what sources might be acceptable, feel free to email me. If you want, we can have a Zoom meeting. We can discuss it in person or, you know, on Zoom, which is as in person as many of our interactions will get. But what I want you to do is I want you to remember that we do have the citation, and it's very important. And when in doubt, cite something. Parenthetical at the end, right? Even if you have an oral citation, it's perfectly fine for me to put your oral citation in there and then put a parenthetical at the end too. Okay, and parenthetical is that you have the one parenthesis, the name, comma, the year, comma. Now remember, if you're doing a direct quote, you also have either the paragraph number if it's an online website, or the page number if it's a specific quote from like a book or a magazine article or something, so that I could find that directly if I went and got that resource. All right, well, that's a brief down and dirty of what's going on with citations and what I'm looking for. If you have questions, one of the best places to go is the Purdue OWL website. And they have a sample APA paper, and if you look at that reference page, that's really a great example of what your reference page should look like. Just remember all of that. Feel free to rewatch this video. If you have major questions, please feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best to answer it. With that, have a great rest of your weekend, what little bit is left, and I will see you Tuesday for speech number 3.